Make a video tutorial for the project we are currently working on. It is the abstract portrait using the Pathfinder pattern that we made. So I've already gone ahead and selected an image. I've gone ahead and selected a portrait of Jack Nicholson. And so while selecting your portrait of the person or character you want to use, make sure that you guys are looking for the following things. One, that the subject is well lit, right? The other is that the background doesn't have anything too busy going on, because it will help with selecting the object when we take this image into Photoshop. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and done that, and notice I have my subject on a canvas. And so a couple things you want to note. If you have this icon here, it's just letting you know that it is a smart object, and so we want to make sure that we remove that. Some of you may even have the lock, and so to remove the lock, make sure you just click on the lock, or you can select the layer that you're on and make sure you click the lock icon right above it to unlock it. Now to remove the smart object feature, we're going to go ahead and right click on the layer, and we're going to go ahead and rasterize the image. Once we do that, we've removed the smart object feature from the image, and we can go ahead and begin isolating our subject from our background. So I'm going to go ahead and select my magic wand tool. If you're having trouble finding it, it is the letter W. Now there's many ways to do this. I'm not saying this is the best way. This is just one way to do it. Okay. Once you have that selected, I can go ahead and select the subject by clicking this button. And so it's a nice feature that makes quick work of selecting people or objects in an image. Once you're happy with that, notice that the line that has the marching ants around the figure is outlining what we have selected. So if I go ahead and hit delete, you'll notice that I'm deleting the subject, and we don't want to do that. So if you do this mistake, go ahead and hit Command Z to undo. And we're actually going to hold down the Command key, the Shift key, and then we're going to tap the letter I on the keyboard to reverse the selection. And now notice how the marching ants are marching around everything that is around our subject. So from here, you can go ahead and click delete, and notice how our subject is now isolated. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my magic wand is selected, and I can just go ahead and click anywhere to remove the marching ants. Once I have removed the entire background and I only have the subject left, we can go ahead and save this to our desktop. Now you're going to be presented with this Save to Creative Cloud. We don't need to save it unless if you want to do something with this image later. I'm going to go ahead and name it Jack. I'm going to make sure that it's on my computer where it's saved. I'm going to make sure I'm going to click Save on Computer. Okay, I'm going to make sure that it is saved as a .psd file, that is a Photoshop document. And I'm going to make sure that it's saved to the desktop. Shortcut for that is holding down Command and tapping the letter D, and notice how the desktop has been selected as the folder or destination where we will save this document. From here, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to say OK. And now I can go ahead and lower Photoshop, and you'll notice the PSD file is now saved to our desktop. From here, I'm going to go ahead and open our Adobe Illustrator file where we have our pattern that we made using the Pathfinder tools. Once you're here, we're going to go ahead and prep our canvas by making sure that our opacity is set to around 60%. For some of you, it might be a little bit higher. For some of you, it might be a little bit lower. I'm not saying that 60% is the gold standard. I'm just saying that it works for my current pattern that I have on the screen. Once I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and place the PSD file to my canvas. There's a couple ways I can do that. One of those is to click File, Place, and you'll notice the shortcut here is Shift Command P. So I'm going to hold down Shift Command and tap the letter P. It'll bring up this window here, and hopefully you're on your desktop. If you're not there, use this drop-down menu to get to it, or you can also find it on this left panel or this left column. From here, I can go ahead and select the PSD file. I'm going to go ahead and click Place. And then you'll notice that I have a small little icon of Jack Nicholson's head, and so essentially where my cursor is, which is just up and to the left of the character, is where I will place the top left corner of the image. So I'm going to go ahead and click once with my mouse to release it, And then I can go ahead and start moving the image around to get it situated on my canvas. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust the image height. And then I'm going to use my directional keys to kind of make micro adjustments. Now that I have the subject in the center or where I want it placed, I'm going to go ahead and make an image trace. Now, during class, I showed you guys that the image trace is under Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. But there is another option to do it, and notice right here where it says Image Trace on the canvas when I have my image selected. I'm going to go ahead and click on this drop-down menu, and what I want to do is I want to go to Black and White Logo. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and you'll notice it'll create a black and white image of the photo. From here, I'm going to go ahead and select the Direct Select tool, and I'm going to go ahead and click in the corner here and click Delete. Now, by clicking Delete, it's going to delete the entire image because we haven't expanded the trace. So again, making sure that your subject is selected, I'm going to go ahead and click the Expand button, and now you'll notice that there's lots of lines that have now outlined the shape. And again, I can go over here to the corner, double click. I'm going to make sure I delete the background. Okay. From here, I can begin creating the layers of filters using the opacity feature. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I select my subject. I'm going to go ahead and click opacity. I'm going to scroll over here to the left, and right where it says normal, I'm going to open this drop down menu and select the overlay feature. Now, currently you can barely see your image, and that's totally okay. We're going to work on accentuating just the subject in our portrait. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and click on my subject. I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit, Copy, and I'm going to go ahead and click Edit Front, right? A quicker way of doing that is to click on your subject, hold down Command C, and then hold down Command Shift, and then tap the letter B on your keyboard. Okay, from here I'm going to go back to my opacity window, and rather than leaving it on overlay, I really want those blacks to stand out, so I'm going to go ahead and change it to darken. Now notice it's really, really dark and not really what I want. So again, I'm going to play with the opacity. I usually like starting at around 20% and then moving up or down depending on the image that I'm using. Okay, I think about 30% should work for this image. And now we can go ahead and start organizing some of our layers, which I neglected to mention. I've been working only in my pattern, and I'm noticing a lot of you guys have been doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the drop-down menu, and the nice thing is that it works usually from the newest addition to the layer all the way down to the first. And so luckily the images are at the top. I'm going to go ahead and add a new layer by clicking on the plus, and then I'm going to go ahead and click double click on the layer and then name this layer. Okay. From here I can go ahead and select the image, and notice there's a little square here. When I select it, if I click off, the square is no longer illuminated. So make sure you're you're clicking with the selection tool and not the direct select tool. But essentially, I'm going to go ahead and select the top layer, click on the square, and then drag it to the layer that I want. I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. I'm going to go ahead and select this layer. I'm going to go ahead and drag it up. And now, if I go ahead and drop down this pattern window, I can go ahead and remove them, and notice the faces are on their own layer. From here, I can go ahead and lock this layer so that I cannot select it. And then carefully, I'm going to go in and begin removing, or not removing, lowering the opacity for some of these shapes. I'm going to go down to about 20%, 25%, and I'm going to work my way around my subject. Now I'm clicking outside of my subject here so that I know that the subject is being emphasized. Just going to continue going around my subject, and you'll notice there's some spots that I've missed, and all I have to do is go in with my direct select arrow sorry, not direct select arrow, with my select arrow, and then I'm going to begin lowering the opacity for some of the shapes that are adjacent to the live trace that we created. You'll notice that the subject will really begin to pop because we're actually removing some of the elements that were competing with it. Okay. Again, make sure that you guys are selecting the objects with your dark arrow. I'm also holding down Shift to make sure that I'm connecting all of these. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Okay, once you're happy with all of the shapes that you've now reduced the opacity to, we're going to go ahead and kind of emphasize some of them, but really it's going to be sporadic where we do it, and really it's just to highlight and accent some of these features. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command 0 to center the page again, and you'll notice that our portrait or our subject is really standing out here with the interesting pattern that we have. And then I'm going to go ahead and begin accentuating just random shapes throughout the piece near the outer edges. Okay, and there really is no formula or rhythm that I'm using here. I'm just randomly selecting objects, and then I'm going to go in and increase their opacity by a little bit. Okay, I still don't want them to compete with our subject, so I'm not going to go to a full 60%. But then I'm going to continue repeating this and vary the amount of opacity that I have for some of these. Again, I want to create some depth and complexity to this piece, right? And the best way to do that is to have some of the elements in the background stand out just a little bit. I think I might do one last little helping here. But you guys can take this as far as you want. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit so you guys can see the full work, and then I'm going to go ahead and center it again. And then from here, folks, I can go ahead and export this as a JPEG to upload to Canvas. Again, I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. And I'm going to make sure that the settings up here are set to JPEG, set to medium quality, and making sure that the width and height are set to paper size, which is 792 by 612. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to make sure that it's saved to our desktop. Again, if it's not on the desktop, the shortcut for that is holding Command and then tapping the letter D for desktop. And then you're going to want to make sure you label it Abstract Portrait and then your initials at the end. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click Save and double check that it saved it to my desktop, and there it is. So now you guys have all of the steps to complete this portrait project. Make sure that you guys rewind and pause wherever you need. If you guys have questions, let me know and I will gladly help you. Thank you. I'll see you guys around.